Hello everyone, my name is Daphne Cook and I'm joining you from MCC North Express. Thank you for joining us today for the Home Instead Aging Well series. And today we are going to be talking about fraud and the aging population. And joining us today we have Shan Wilkins from Home Instead.
Hello.
And Shan, I just want to mention that we did save time at the end for questions. So if at any time you have questions, all you have to do is drop them in the chat. Now, Shan, I think a great place to start when we're talking about this subject is to really start with a statistic about fraud.
Yeah, so research shows that 38% of all adults in the U.S., 38%, all ages, that 38% have somebody has tried to scam them in one way or another. 1 in 5 seniors is going without antivirus on their computers, on their phones, all devices. And then 67% of family caregivers have been victims or targeted of scams. Half do not know the passwords on at least one of their internet-enabled devices. That's so 38% of Americans have been attempted to be scammed. And then just think about that. You have no anti-software and you don't know how to get on one of your devices. And people have all these tablets now, we're finding, and they're just leaving them in their closets, and then, or they're reselling them and they're not clearing them. And so, yeah, it's a issue.
Well, really looking at this, so scamming, fraud affects all populations of people, but with seniors it's typically higher. And looking at it, seniors have more money.
Yes, usually. Yeah.
So a lot of times they have more money, so they typically are the targets of someone who's trying to perpetuate fraud.
Right, and people see seniors as weak and easily manipulated. So yeah, they are a target, very much a target.
And so the fraudsters are just chasing after the money. So there's all types of different frauds occurring from caregivers, frauds occurring from people known and unknown. But I thought we could start with some of the ones that are happening right now, 2021, some of the most popular ones. And one is the social security spoofing.
Yeah, so with COVID and that type of stuff, bad people are taking advantage of it. So they'll call and they'll say they're from the security office, they need their social security number, there's been an issue with your check, or you need to have your check mailed to you and not direct deposited anymore. First of all, no government agency will ever call you like that. They may return a call, but they're never going to initiate that type of call. It will always be in writing and there will always be a contact number for you to call. Never, of course, we hear this all the time, but never ever give your social security number out. Never give your date of birth if you don't know who you're talking to. They may ask stuff like, we're calling to confirm, the last 3 addresses that you may have lived at. Nothing, no identifying information. It's okay to say, you know what, why don't you send me a letter in the mail and we'll go from there. So, yeah.
So really, keeping in mind that it's suspicious that a government agency would be contacting you without you having previously initiated a phone call,
right,
and asking for personal information. If you're asking for the previous 3 addresses, that's what you use on credit reports.
Right, exactly. Or, are you related to these people? So what's interesting is nowadays there's many websites where you can do people searches. And people use them for good purposes, such as genealogy and other things, but they're used for fraudulent purposes as well. So for a small fee, you can subscribe to one of these websites, type in someone's first and last name in their city, and it will bring up all kinds of information like their date of birth, where they live at, what they did for a living, all their social media websites, even their email addresses. So it's, you want to be very on your guard about what you're giving out. And even you'll get a pop-up, I get them all the time, and they're scams. You've won a free iPad, and it's a text message. Don't click on it. Do not click on it. Nobody's
going to give you a free iPad.
Especially if you haven't shopped at Walmart in 3 years. Nobody's going to, no. And stores don't do those types of giveaways and that type of thing. So if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And every generation is a little bit different. Between the ages of 18 and like 25, I've read a study, they have no problem giving out the last four of their social security number, their date of birth, I get a free cup of coffee if I enter this sweepstakes. And so trying to re-educate a whole generation, more or less, just telling our seniors, don't even give out the last four. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm not comfortable giving you that information. Is there another way can I create a 3-digit PIN number or something like that?
So one thing that anyone can do if they receive a phone call like that they feel is suspicious, is they can report that to the Inspector General office.
Yes.
And so we do have a phone number we'll drop into the chat for the Inspector General office, and you can submit a report for the office of the Inspector General.
Yes, and a lot of times it's a phone call, and they can email you a form as well or send you a form in the mail. And then I recommend no suspicion is too small. So it's really important if you think you've truly been attempted to be that someone was trying to scam you or you were a victim, don't let your pride get in the way. Report it. Do report it, because people's houses are being taken with identity theft. That's a real thing. So yeah, nothing is too small.
And then also, if you get a phone call, it's all right to hang up. So there's a certain generation that feels that it's impolite to hang up.
Yeah, no, you can just say, you know what, I'm busy right now, this isn't a good time. And I always, when I get a call like that from a telemarketer, if I think it's a scam, I always say, and please put me on your do not call list, and hang up. End of story. If if you keep them on the line, they have longer to convince you that it isn't a scam, and it's just human to want to believe the person that you're talking to. And so yes, it's okay just to end the conversation and hang up. And if you're not comfortable saying anything, it's okay just to disconnect the call.
And statistically, the longer they keep you on the line, they have a better opportunity to perpetuate fraud, which is why they do try to keep people on the line.
Because then they'll, even if they get you angry, you may give them, they may just throw out a date of birth, and because you're upset that they're keeping you on the phone and you don't want to hang up, you may give them your date of birth, or you may give them your street address.
Which is their tactic.
Yes, exactly. So yes, it's okay just to hang up and say, you know what, or if you don't want to do that, you can always say, why don't you give me your phone number and extension and your supervisor's name and your email address, and I'll call you back. It's perfectly okay to do that.
Another scam, talking 2021 scams that are happening right now, is the grandparent scam.
Oh yeah, so it's funny, there's a couple of those. It's funny in the aspect that it's happened to a friend of mine. Her dad called her and said, why is Sam in jail? And she's like, it's her son. It would be her dad's She's like, he's not in jail. What are you talking about? Well, he just called me from Des Moines, from the jail. And she's like, he's sitting right across from me. So somebody had called, somehow they knew that Sam, this phone number, their name, there was a grandson named Sam, and they were asking the grandfather to wire money to the jail to get him out of jail. And he said he didn't sound like himself because he had been in a fight, and so he had his face was swollen.
So it's like you had mentioned before, when there's these people searches and they look at who you're attached to. So this is that one calling and pretending to be a grandchild, pretending to be a loved one who's in desperate need, and they need the cash now.
Right. And they say stuff like, oh, I have a cold, or or it's I'm a friend of Samantha's and she can't call you right now because, she's been in a car accident, and, we've got to get her some medication, and, it's horrible. But yeah, it's okay once again to hang up and then call that your child and find out what's going on with their child, they usually do know. So yeah.
It seems like a lot of these tactics really play on emotion. So with the Social Security spoofing, it's this, you have to give us this information, there's legal action, we're gonna stop your check. And then even with the grandparent scam, it's really trying to play on your emotion. Your grandchild needs you, they can't talk to you, I sound different. So it's really this play on emotion, this sense of urgency, the sense of you have to do this now or something bad is going to happen.
Right, and they want you to give you a credit card. Give us your credit card and we can, then we can pay for it. Don't ever do that. First of all, if your grandchild was in the hospital, either probably their parent would contact you or an official from the hospital would reach out. Law enforcement, if you do get that call, you can always say, okay, what jail are you in, what city, and then you can call the jail too and confirm that information. So just never pay for anything immediately. If it's truly a true situation, there are very simple ways to find out if it's a scam or it's not, and you just have to stay calm and not let the emotions, as hard as that is, block you from thinking clearly and problem solve through a situation.
So good, so really good suggestion. Don't pay for anything immediately. Because as we discussed, there's always this sense of urgency. You have to do this right now. Everything is dependent upon you. And so if you get something like this, you can file a complaint or a report at the FTC.
Yes.
And we'll drop that information in the chat as well. Another big one right now, especially in 2021 with COVID, is just fraudulent charities.
Yes, so that's another thing. If they're a legitimate charity, you don't have to donate right away. You can, what's your website? I haven't received anything in the mail from you. And you can ask charities, how did you get my name? And you can ask them too, please withdraw me from your calling and mailing list. And I believe we'll have a link to the opt-out way of doing that. But yeah, if it's a legitimate charity, they're going to tell you how they got your name. They're going to send you stuff in the mail, that type of thing. And a lot of times we inadvertently will be on a website and okay to get information. So, but if it's a legitimate charity, they can answer your concerns. And once again, what's your phone number? Why don't I call you back? And then, you never give a person your credit card number. Never. And I wouldn't recommend really for charities. I would be very careful before I would even put it on a website, that type of thing. So, but yeah, it's unfortunate. Or they'll say they're, have a coat drive. Can they come by and do you have any old clothes and stuff like that? Usually that's done by churches or neighborhood things. So I wouldn't offer that type of thing to let people come to your home and pick up stuff because they're probably just, what's the word I'm looking for?
They're casing the place?
Yes, unfortunately.
Especially if they think it's an older person living alone. And there are ways to check out the legitimacy of an organization. If you go to the IRS's tax exempt organization search, that is a good tool to use to see, is this a legit organization? Right.
And it's all right to ask. Usually in most communities, you're going to recognize the name of the charity, friends, that type of thing have probably donated. That's how they may have gotten your name. So yeah, I would check them out on the IRS website. I would ask my friends. But I always say, what's your number? Can I call you back? Who's your supervisor? Those type. And if it's legitimate charity, they're going to be able to answer all those questions without any problems.
Well, there's a large range of factors that people are that scammers are looking to exploit older people. I think there's this stereotype of them being frail or having mental decline, and sometimes that is an issue, but there are a series of frauds that are committed by strangers, and so let's talk about that a little bit. So like the frauds around COVID medication testing, would you talk a little bit about that?
Yep, so the phone calls are being made now that say, you have to have a COVID test, and the kit is this much and we need to send it to you right now. So once again, what's your credit card number? Nope, don't give it out. Your doctor will schedule you for that. You can call your doctor's office and get scheduled for that. Or now, with COVID testing and vaccines, they're done in most major, where there's a major pharmacy. So there is no medication for COVID. There is prescription fraud out there where, oh, we have a pill for COVID. No, we don't. So don't, just hang up. If you take prescriptions, this is another big fraud. They'll say, your doctor ordered you a new prescription of this. So what's your credit card number so we can get it added to your prescriptions and get that sent out to you? No, but I found that one rather interesting. Most Americans over the age of 60 take some sort of a medication. So there is that. And then anti-aging products. No, there is no water or pill that's going to make you young again. Just be real leery of those types of things. Ask them if it is a product you think it's legitimate and you think you might be interested, then ask them to mail you some information so you can look at it.
Like right now, there's a thing happening that there's this special raw water, which is just lake water or something.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many, especially with the anti-aging. It's crazy. It really, yeah. So I just, the basic rules. It's okay to ask what number can I call you back on. It's okay to say I can't talk any longer, I'm busy. It's okay just to hang up quietly. And it's okay to say if you think you want to purchase something, you never impulse buy. You don't want to impulse buy when you're out in the stores, and definitely not when you're being approached over the phone about a product. So it's okay to say, send me some information, I need some time to think about it. And then, look at what you were told over the phone and that type of thing.
Let's talk a little bit about prizes and sweepstakes. So some of these sound legit, especially if they say, hey, you've won something, you just need to cover the shipping. You just need to cover the taxes.
Usually if you've won something, you have entered it.
Good point.
Yeah, you're not, and think about it. Like I said, if you won an iPad from Walmart, when was the last time you went to Walmart? Or when was the last time you shopped at Walmart's webpage or Kohl's or any of those other stores? So just think about that and think about, okay, why would I be winning this? You probably haven't. To my knowledge, none of those are really legitimate. If you've entered a sweepstakes, you've entered it. So don't click on those links for emails, especially now on the phone too, they come all the time. You're gonna know. So I just simply, what I do is block those text messages. You go on an iPhone, you can hit the little I at the top, information about, and it gives you the phone number, scroll down and hit block. If you have an Android, I'm not sure how to do it, but most people can help anybody who doesn't quite know how to do that. Just block the number in the future, or the text message. And then you can, in your emails, when you get an email in your inbox, and it's like, you've won this and you haven't, you can safeguard the future emails by just making them spam or junk, or totally blocking them with your email provider.
And the same thing as a phone too, if you get phone calls, because some of the phone calls now, they look like they're coming from your common area.
Yes.
They're just a made up number. It used to be, this is restricted or it's blocked, but now a lot of them come through and they look like they're coming from your area code.
Yeah, so there are, on your landline, we'll put a link to where you can be on the do not call list, or you can go to the website or call. And then depending on your cellular provider, so Verizon is pretty good, but the way the scammers have gotten around that is now they've got local numbers. So like I got 2 yesterday from Avoca, Iowa. I know nobody in Avoca, Iowa. So I just didn't answer the call and then went in and blocked it. But they are getting around that. I don't know what providers are going to do. But I just recommend blocking those calls. But yeah, if you don't know the number, you don't have to answer the phone. They can leave a message. It's very simple. It's okay to just not answer your phone. And if, what I have had some seniors do is they program their phones with a special ringtone for each family member. So some people only talk to certain people. They don't have a business, they're not taking multiple calls, and so they have a ringtone for their granddaughter, a ringtone for their son, those types of safety precautions. So if they don't recognize the ringtone, then they just don't answer the phone.
That is such a great idea.
Yeah, so we really recommend doing that as well. And then there's a pamphlet that we are going to put a link to, and it talks about for landlines all the different ways what you can do for seniors to block scam phone numbers now and that type of thing. But the problem is we just don't have a lot of landlines anymore. And there are apps out there that can block scam calls. So I just recommend if you get one, read what it's blocking. On accident, sometimes they will block a number you want to receive a call from. So, but there's some really good apps out there on the phones too. So yeah, just have to be cautious.
So another common fraud for investments is, we just had an eclipse.
Yeah.
Another common fraud is investment fraud, because a lot of seniors live on fixed incomes and they want to increase the value of their estate. And then there's also this fear of missing out. So if you hear something, this is fantastic, you have to act now, some strangers calling out of the ether. Right. How do you handle that?
Same way. So it's kind of like if you've entered a sweepstakes, you've entered the sweepstakes. It's kind of like, do you have a financial advisor? If you don't have a financial advisor and then someone all of a sudden is calling you, and they'll say something like, we're going to help you with your 401k, or we're going to help you increase your Social Security. Once again, name, number, and can I call you back? And then just, how did you hear about me? How did you get, what makes you think I have any money? It's okay to be guarded and be like that when you're on the phone with someone that wants you to give up your money. So yeah, if it's something like that and they're legitimate, they can give you a phone number to call you back at. They can tell you who they talk to and why they're calling you. And I wouldn't even if they do give you a name, I wouldn't even talk to them at that point. I would just say, you know what, I'll get back to you. And then I would call that person and say, hey, this person called me. Did you tell them to call me? So,
right.
The biggest thing for me is just always those same things. Name, number, you can mail me something, and how did you hear about me, and what's the number that I can call you back at?
And then also feel empowered, because just because somebody asks you a question doesn't mean that you have to answer it. And for some, there is this feeling of, and particularly with the older generation, be polite, answer the question, but you have no responsibility to answer a question just because it's asked, especially a personal prying question in regards to your finances.
Well, your finances, your health. If the caller's always somehow it's leading back to finances, be very, very guarded. And yeah, you don't have to answer anything. You can, that's why the best thing to do is just not answer the phone. If you don't recognize the caller, it's an easy way to screen. They're going to leave a message. But yeah, don't feel obligated to answer anything, more or less give out any more information than what's already out there about you on the internet. And what I do tell families and seniors is Google yourself. Don't hesitate to put your name in that Google search and find out what is out there about me. Facebook, Instagram, all these websites have ways that you can secure your identity. I don't think they talk about it enough, but it's okay to ask somebody for help if you don't know how to do it, but you can make your profile where maybe they just see a picture of you. I know people that have Facebook accounts that haven't realized their address and phone number's up there, and then they'll post a picture they're on vacation.
And knowing where you are as well, because knowing how the app works, because a lot of times, for example, with Facebook, they'll update their regulations or requirements, and sometimes that changes your privacy settings without your permission, and you just have to reset them.
Right, and then especially with Facebook and some of these other apps, they share your location. And so you could be at the grocery store and you didn't even know, you're sharing your location on Facebook with someone, not just your family member, but on Facebook. And so I would be very careful, go into the settings. You're not going to break anything and read them. It does take a little bit of time. And it's okay to ask for help, but I say, Google yourself, ask somebody else to bring up your Facebook profile on their phone so you can see it. Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Try never to use your real name as your username on a public site like Twitter or those types of things. I would be leery. Use a nickname or something like that. Never put a year. Usually a year is going to indicate it's the year you were born, one of your children were born, one of your grandchildren. It's a year and a date in a password, in a username, is a sign that that's an important number to you, and it isn't hard to decipher what that would be if someone really wanted to.
Well, and since we're talking about Facebook, and this happens in other apps too, but a lot of times you'll get something that says, hey, your friend completed this fun little game, why don't you complete it? And a lot of times it asks questions that would be associated with passwords. So it might ask you, where are the places you've lived? That's for credit reports. What are the pets you've owned? A lot of people use pets as passwords. How many children do you have? And all of these are building up a profile of you, but it's presented as a game.
Yeah, what did you do for a living? How many years at college? So, what did you do for a living before you retired? I was a nurse. Okay, so what college did you go to? Because when you go and create a new username and password, websites now ask you to create 4 questions that allow only you to know, so that if you lose your password, you can get into the website. So if they create this profile of you and you just told them, I had 3 children, I went to the University of Nebraska, I graduated in 1969, I lived in Papillion, then they just can put those as answers to security questions, and then you don't even have access to a website that you may be buying things and that type of thing. And it makes it harder when you do find out that there's fraud going on to take it down. So yeah, I don't, you just have to be guarded and very discerning when you're on the internet sharing your information. You just have to be discreet, if that makes any sense. And you can share your profile with whom you want. Some people have it set up where only friends can see their profile. And some people I know have it set up that only their friends can see their profile and not their friends' friends.
Right, so you can have it set up to what your friends can see, and you can also set up your profile to how you're discovered.
Yes, yeah, and so so you just have to go in and take the time and set those. I used to be really leery to leave my payment information in my phone, but I'm in a hurry, instant gratification, but make sure you look at those too, your iWallet or your Android wallet, when you're buying something on Facebook, even on, Target or Hy-Vee, all that information is stored on your computer and on the Google server or, the Bing server. And so all that information is stored there. So for your convenience when you go back, but like we just talked about, 1 in 5 seniors don't have antivirus. So if they're shopping online and they have this information, they don't have antivirus and they don't have a firewall to their internet or a password to their Wi-Fi, it's easily obtainable. It's not, it's not very hard to get. So have to be really careful about where you're storing your financial information.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that's happening right now is a lot of mortgages, financing and refinancing, but there are predatory lenders out there and there are just plain fraudsters out there. So what are some tips if you're getting calls from someone who wants to refinance your loan?
Hang up, just hang up. You'll know if you need to refinance, you'll have that sense of urgency, so you're gonna contact your lender. If you've recently refinanced, all the people involved in the refinance of a home or selling of a property, there's a title company, there's your bank, there's your insurance. And so all those entities sell your information to other organizations, and that's how they get it. So just be leery, and if it sounds too good and it sounds like, oh, 1% on my house loan, just hang up and call your banker. And just say, I don't recognize the name of your bank. I'm not going to switch banks. I don't want to use you. And then just call your financial institution, whoever you use to refinance or buy, and ask them to, one, not share your information. So that's the other thing. You have to be pretty specific with organizations. If you don't want your lenders, I'm trying to think, not doctors, but your utility company, those types of organizations to share your information, you have to tell them. And sometimes you have to write them a letter and mail it, in which I recommend people do, and keep a copy of it and the envelope so you can see when you postmarked it. But if you don't specifically tell an organization not to share your information, they legally can. And they do, and it's just a list. I mean, businesses do it all the time. They buy consumer information. And in some states, you can still buy a person's health information to some degree, which I found amazing.
Wow.
So you have to be very, very intentional on where your information is going and how it's getting out there. And don't ever feel like you can't, call your utility company and say, hey, do you sell my information? I want to make sure you're not selling my information. It's okay. Your cable company, all that.
Well, Shan, you bring up a good point, because a lot of times if you're interacting with a legitimate organization, say it is a health organization, many times you'll have to sign something saying it's okay, or I acknowledge that my information could be sold. And sometimes they have it set up where you have to opt out of that.
Yeah. And so when you go to the doctor's office, you have to sign a thing that says you can share my medical records with other healthcare providers if it directly is related to me. It's called HIPAA. Unfortunately, we don't do that. We don't have those laws with other commercial organizations. So yeah, you have to be very intentional and direct about not sharing your information. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Got a little sidetracked there.
Another thing is, we're talking about 2021 right now. There is an increase in vaccinations. There's a pulling back of the mask mandate. So there is this renewed interest in travel.
Yeah. So once again, it's funny. You think your credit card would be safe in your phone, but it's not. You're in an airport, and if you look around in an airport, all these computers are going, and even I have wondered, I'm like, I don't know what they're doing over there. So I personally turn my phone off if I can when I enter an airport. And then I only take so much cash with me, and I do always keep my credit cards and stuff on my person. That fanny pack, don't wear the fanny pack behind you, but it does serve a purpose if it's in front of you. And then traveling, when you rent a car, make sure you call the rental car company. If they call you back, hang up and call them back. Be very leery of all those things. Hotels, that type of thing. A lot of people are using like Experian and those types of websites, and that's, to my knowledge, that's perfectly fine. I'm not an expert. I'm not promoting any one organization, but usually it's okay in that way. But once again, if you're traveling and you've made a reservation with a hotel or you've used a certain company, that's who should be calling you if there's an issue. And then it's okay to say, give me your number, I'll call you back. There's so many ways for people to get your information, know where you're at, know what you're doing. That is my best advice. Just ask them, what's your phone number? Let me call you back.
Yeah, and call back and make sure it's the actual organization or company that you've made a reservation with. I have started receiving emails, and it's interesting. They say, a savvy traveler like you knows how to take advantage of a good deal.
Right. It's kind of like the timeshare. If it's too good to be true. Usually there's going to be disclosures at the bottom of the web page, that type of thing. If you've never taken a cruise and all of a sudden they want you to take a cruise, it's a red flag. But it's also a red flag if you do take cruises and you're getting this information. So it's okay to call the actual company and say, one, I'm getting solicited to use your service. I want to know more about you. And then it's also okay to say, don't contact me. I don't want your emails, that type of thing. And then usually at the bottom of those emails, there is a unsubscribe, because we do inadvertently, when we're on the internet, we may be on a website and oh, there's cookies, blah, 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 and you click okay. And that may have, you just said okay to being solicited for products and stuff. So I tell people, scroll to the bottom, unsubscribe if you're interested. And it's not a major retailer like Amazon or Southwest Airlines. It's a website you don't recognize, that type of thing. And you click on a link in your email and it takes you to a web page that doesn't look right. Then don't. Just go back, unsubscribe, and then mark it for junk, or don't allow it to even come through anymore.
Absolutely, good tips. Now, Shan, some research shows that consumer fraud among the elderly is severely underreported. Can you talk a little bit about why that might be? Pride.
Nobody wants to admit that you feel stupid. You felt sorry for somebody, or you thought it was your grandchild, or you wanted to donate to a charity. So a lot of it is pride, and it's fear that your children will start to think you can't make your own decisions. There's so many dynamics wrapped up in that. Never feel stupid. It can happen to the best of us. And so, if you don't want to share it with a family member, call the Attorney General's office directly, but don't not report it, and ask for help. We've all been victims of some type of attempted scam, or unfortunately a scam. It can happen to the best of us. So especially, we're not talking, like anything else, these scams have gotten more and more and more sophisticated. And so what I tell people, you don't want to report it, but you may be helping someone else down the line if you do report it. Because the only way it can be stopped is when offices like the Attorney General's office start to see a trend. And the only way they're going to know that is if people report it. And don't be afraid to make a police report. That's what the police are there for. Theft is theft. Just because it's not a physical thing, it's still your identity. And you're talking about your home, your car, your retirement, all kinds of things. So yeah, and just remember, if you're embarrassed, just think, okay, if I report this, I may be helping someone else down the road, so they don't have to experience the same thing I did.
Yeah, and these are tools of manipulation.
Yeah.
They're tricks. That's what they're meant to do, is try to trick. And AARP has given some, has offered some reasons why people sometimes fall for the tricks. And one is just really being enticed by the idea of winning something.
Yeah, it's fun. It's absolutely fun. And when you're in the moment, you're not thinking if it's legitimate. It's just like, wow, you want to give me an iPad? You want to give me 2 free tickets to Hawaii? Wow, that's awesome. Okay. So it's just having to stay calm in the moment and just be discerning. And, if it's all legit, there'll be a time to get all excited. But
exactly.
Usually if you've won something legitimately, you're going to get a certified letter in the mail. It's not going to come over the internet, and it's not going to come over a text message, and it's not going to come through a phone call. So, and if you do get a letter that says you won something, Google the company, talk to other people. You don't have to call it either. So those types of things.
Another statistic from AARP is though 90% of people have heard about telemarketing fraud, many reported, over 2/3, that they had difficulty telling apart legitimate and fraudulent pitches.
Well, they're sophisticated. And so, like I said, those websites out there that can tell you a lot about yourself and other people about yourself. So these are sophisticated scams, and they have done their research before they pick up the phone or attempt to scam you, so that they do sound legitimate. Absolutely. So yeah, it's easy to be a victim. Anybody can be a victim, and it's just not seniors. So I hope seniors don't feel like, don't let pride get in the way or feel stupid. But yeah, you have to report it, and they are sophisticated. It's insane. I mean, they'll know what kind of car you drive. Oh, the best one I love is you need that extended warranty. And they'll even send you stuff in the mail, and I have to really look at it. Okay, this is not from the vehicle company I bought from. This is somebody else selling it an extended warranty. So you just have to be very, very careful and look at things and just be discerning.
Another interesting statistic from AARP is that even when people felt like a phone call was fraudulent, they felt bad for trying to end the phone call or hanging up.
They wouldn't feel bad if the person was trying to break into their home and they prevented it. And that's exactly what's happening. This is just another type of invasion of your personal information and your property. It's just something you physically can't see or touch. So yeah, just hang up the phone. It's perfectly, you're not taking their birthday away. They're not going, nothing terrible is going to happen to them. They're just going to hear a dial tone or silence. It's not the end of the world. And
it's their job, and they're going to move on to the next one.
Yes, exactly.
There's no special connection.
Right. They're not your friend. So don't feel bad.
Shan, what are some of the warning signs that a loved one may be taken advantage of or maybe has experienced consumer fraud?
So if you help a loved one pay their bills and all of a sudden there's a large sum of money that's been taken out of their bank account, or you're looking at return checks or bank statements and there's products being bought and signatures that kind of look like your loved ones but aren't your loved ones. You ask your loved one about something and they're anxious and they're instantly angry when you ask them, that's a sign. I tell people, if you think you have a loved one, an aging adult that's been a victim, the best way to probably start the conversation is, hey mom, did you hear about this IRS scam? It's just taken hundreds of thousands of people's money, that type of thing. Or do you remember the time I took a phone call and I accidentally mailed off $50 to this company to get this prize? So it's empathy and staying calm, but softly walking into the conversation and not being accusation and having a tone of, oh, I can't believe you would fall for that, or I told you if it wasn't my ringtone not to answer your phone, or why would you do that? You never want to approach it like that, because then you'll never probably find out to the extent of how they were victimized and how many times they've been victimized. So it's just real important to come in from a place of empathy and relating and help them relate to you in that situation.
Another indicator potentially of abuse or fraud could be an acquaintance, maybe someone you don't know so well, having an interest or maybe even access to financial information. Right.
So all of a sudden, your loved one has a new friend, or they said they're going to help me around the house and stuff. That's what organizations like Homestead are for. So if there's a new friend or a new company, if your loved one was using the same lawn company for 10 years and all of a sudden there's a new lawn company, you need to question that. Why did they change, or why are they getting a new roof? There's been no storms. I don't understand. Why are they changing? Why do you have this letter that you terminated your life insurance policy? That's another big scam that's going around, life insurance and funeral planning. So look at the mail, if you can, go through the mail with your loved one, that type of thing. But yeah, they get defensive. There's a new friend, there's a new agency doing a service for them, that type of thing.
And another thing maybe as well, as you mentioned, if someone gets angry when you ask them about finances, but just really kind of implausible explanations about finances as well.
Yeah, like, I used my air conditioner a little too long and I had to pay a little extra money to OPPD. Well, Mom, you only wrote a check to OPPD for $100, but there's a check to Zimbabwe's lottery for $200. But don't approach it in a different, in a nicer way, But yeah, you just have to, they're going to have bills unpaid, they're going to have bounce checks, they're going to be tense and uptight and distracted. And so just look for the warning signs.
So Shan, we have a couple of questions from the chat.
Okay.
That I'm going to ask you. Our first one is, what is one of the biggest red flags to watch out for if there is a fraudulent call or email? Biggest red flags.
The long pause. It amazes me. When I call you, you say hello right away. If there's a long pause, that's a flag to me. If they instantly want to know, is this so-and-so? Instead of saying something like, hey, I'm with OPPD, that type of thing. If they want your information right away. If there's noise in the background, that type of thing, and if, but the long pause for me personally.
If there's noise in the background, like you're talking to a call center?
Yeah, thank you. There's 12 or 16 other people around them working. And if it's a legitimate business calling you, they're not going to call you. They're going to call you from their office.
Yeah. And they're going to make themselves available. They'll have no problem receiving a return phone call.
Right.
And having you take their information.
Mm-hmm. So even if you, like I said, even if you don't think there's a red flag, go in as there is a flag. Everything's a flag. And the best thing to do is hang up and let me call you back. And it's okay to say, I'm just trying to do my due diligence and protect my identity. I don't know you, but I'd love to get your number and let me call you back. They'll probably hang up.
Well, and one of the things that we talked about is this difficulty in identifying or telling the difference between something that's legitimate and something that's a scam. So one of the questions we have is, how do I even know if I'm being scammed?
You don't. That's why you just have to be on your guard. And just, that's why I tell people, if you're being told you won something, or the IRS is saying you owe them $10,000, and if you don't clear it up by the end of today, you're going to lose your house in 20 days, and they've supposedly sent you 10 or 15 letters and get you all worked up, that's a sign. If they're having a sense of urgency pushing you, that's a sign. So you just don't. Just hang up. They'll call you back. The IRS, just remember, no government agency is ever going to call you. Not the IRS, not Social Security, not initially. And if you have to call them back or they have to call you back, I have one client that she was working with the IRS and they had a password. She dealt with the same rep, but there was a password both ways on her account. So she had to give a password, and then the agent when they called her back, had to give a password. And she set that up with them in writing through a form. So, you don't know if you're being scammed. So you just need to go in. I think the best way is to go in on your guard until you know legitimately it's not a scam.
Well, you mentioned a password. So one of the things that you can do is have an extra layer of protection, like a password, like you can have an extra layer of protection at a bank, for example. If I withdraw over a certain amount of money, there's a notification to someone.
Yep. So I think even on your cell phone bill, on your cable, I don't know of any legitimate organization where you are going to be paying them for a service that will not allow you to put a password on your account with them. And then for your bank, the same thing. You can, it's a PIN number or an alert. On your credit report, it's Experian, I think, offers it, and some other FICO and them, they will notify you. You can legitimately go to those websites and set up stuff where if something happens on your credit report, it is flagged. You can set that up the same way on your bank. If, banks even do it for you. If you've spent $250 and all of a sudden it's out of Chicago and they see you've never been to Chicago, they'll stop your card, but not always. So that's the other thing. If you're going to be traveling, call your bank. And then when that won't happen, But it will also open the lines of communication with your bank and stuff like that, so they know what you're doing and they get to know your pattern better. So that's what I tell people.
And those are some great things to do on the front end.
Yeah. Well, I've traveled and not called the bank, and I'm like, I can't use my card, and then I've had to prove that I'm me. So that's been an experience. So I tell people, if you can prevent it and just be on your guard, it's the best thing. So if you're going to travel, let the bank know. So then, even if you're not traveling, like I said, if it's a big purchase and all of a sudden you've never been to that city and you're in that city spending money, that's a flag. And a lot of companies will call. And then your Amazon account, your all those accounts, make sure that you don't include your address as your password. And I know it's hard to not use the same password over and over. A lot of websites do they'll generate the password for you. And then there's also websites, I think there's iLock or something where you can store your passwords on your electronic device. And it's an act of Congress to get into it. I have one. But I also still do keep my passwords and usernames written down in a safe spot in my house if something would ever happen to me, because my family is not going to be able to get into my phone because it's, face protected now or fingerprinted. But just write it down but try not to use the same passwords over and over, and do some things in the front end to avoid scams and stuff like that. So like if you have a PIN number with OPPD, you can call them. When you call them back, they're going to ask for your PIN number or your cable company or whatever. So when you say, give me your number and I'll call you back, and you call back and they're not asking you for your PIN number, okay, it's a scam. So.
Yeah, when I was traveling, I've had my bank contact me and say, you have charges here, because I've forgotten to let them know I'd be traveling, and I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, well, and it's not just we're finding not the big scams too, it's the little ones where people are buying stuff off of Amazon or stores like that and stuff. So I would just make sure that you know your passwords. You don't store your credit card information in those shopping apps. It really just depends. There's so many ways. I can't even tell you the ways that they get that information. And unfortunately, our largest retailers get hacked all the time, and then
Right.
they have our credit card information and stuff like that. So read your bills. A lot of people have auto pay. Open up your statement. Look at your statement. Make sure that there isn't all. You may open up your statement. I didn't spend $100 at Costco. I don't even have a membership to Costco. That's a flag. So make sure you're looking at your bank statements, at your invoices, those types of things.
One of the things that my bank had shared with me is a lot of times some fraudulent entities will try a bunch of small charges to see if they go through, and then if they go through, and they could be as small as like $1, just to see if it's active, and then if they go through, then that's when they do the big fraudulent purchase.
Right, and I mean, I've known people, unfortunately, that they've gotten enough information that they've taken loans out on people's houses, and that's a real thing. So, and there are several companies out there that can help people protect their identity. It's all up to the individual. It just depends on how big your footprint is, whether you want something like that, how much income you have, that type of thing. But it's definitely something to look into. You can always contact the Better Business Bureau too, if an organization reaches out to you, and see if they're legitimate. The big one is a lot of these scams will say, well, we know you use AARP. Okay, just be careful. Just be careful. And one of the ones I've found out now is about the funeral planning and cashing out life insurance. So just remember, if you don't have a funeral plan, a funeral house or organization is not going to call you to get one. That's something that you do yourself. And then with life insurance and stuff, call your agent It's not, the way policies are written, it's going to be your agent that's going to contact you or send you a letter if there's a change. So don't cash in life insurance. Don't give your life insurance information out. Don't, just definitely hang up and just call your agent or who you bought the policy from.
And if you can, block the number. Because if they're calling from one of those numbers, that's one of those made-up numbers, you can just block it.
Well, and
it's
then,
easy on an iPhone.
Well, and if you call it back, and it doesn't work, and then I recommend too, letting the Attorney General's office know, Nebraska Attorney General's, but also letting so if they call and they say they're from State Farm and this and that, call your agent and say, hey, I just think someone tried to scam me. Because the more people that know what's going on, they can stop the scams from happening.
We didn't mention this before, but one of the 2021 scams deals with the money apps where you're giving someone money. And so if someone will get something, say they'll get something that looks like they have a deposit of $500, then that'll be followed by a message saying, hey, I accidentally sent you this money. It wasn't meant for you. Can you send it back to me? And then when they send it back, it's actually them sending their real money back. And
you can't, it's really hard to screw that up, to send the money to the wrong person.
Right. Especially for a large amount too.
Right, you have to, you have the person's user ID. I mean, it's Apple Pay.
A lot of times they have a picture.
Yeah, it's Apple Pay or Venmo, I think. So, I mean, I haven't used Venmo, but I know with Apple Pay, they're in my contact list. I think a friend of mine even put my settings so that I can't Apple Pay somebody that isn't in my contacts. So once again, it goes back to settings and security, but no, at that point, that did not happen. Especially if you don't have the ability to use, some people don't use the wallet feature on their phone. So if you haven't received any money, or they say you have, if you don't have the app they're talking about, it's a definite no. But then you can go in and look at your history and see if you've received it. So just don't automatically send it back. And it's hard to do. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen, but I wouldn't. No.
Well, Shan, we've just got a couple of minutes left, but we have another question from the chat. What recourse do I have once I know I've been scammed?
Well, to report it, call the Attorney General's office of Nebraska or the state that you're in. Usually most states have a consumer government agency, but I would start with the Attorney General's office. They can direct you to the right entity, and then file a police report. If money's been taken, and especially if you have been scammed, you may never get the funds back that they took, but if it will help proving that your identity down the road, if they still try to continue to use your identity to buy stuff or deplete other people's, once they have your identity, then they use your identity to create more theft of others. So it just creates a paper trail that, I legitimately, this happened on this date and they charged this amount of money. And so, no, I didn't do that. It helps if if it becomes terrible and you need to get your identity back or that type of thing.
Shan, I'd just like to thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this very important topic. Coming up, we are taking the month of July off, and we will be back in August to talk about conscious aging. And then very, very excited about the fall. It will be all things cooking, nutrition, the positive impact of eating, and how does that all change when you age. Thank you for joining us for the MCC Home Instead Aging Well series, and we will see you in August.